And welcome back, everyone, to the High School Sports Show as we broadcast to you live and come to you live from down at the Field House. We're powered by McGee Rehabilitation, Rich Henkels and Joe Kraus. Hour number one in the books of a 2-hour live broadcast tonight. Special thanks to Nicole Cripps from Archbishop Wood, Maggie Bird from CB South, and Emily Gallo from Council Rock South, part of our last segment. Well done by all three of our live guests. And, of course, as Rich alluded to, Ben Baker from Think First. Well done, Ben. It was nice to have you come into the program and share with everybody here an incredible and a very meaningful and measurable story for everyone listening here, and also Rich Henkels for everybody listening on 610 as well.
Well, we're trying to make a difference every Monday night, and that's a great example of where we did. But, you know, the interaction between the people, the student athletes, and we'll have more of them in the next hour and change. So it's a lot of give and take that means a lot to the listeners and to us, the producers of the show. Our next guest is a gentleman who I mentioned earlier. We were introduced to Roger through Wally Lubansky. Wally is a guy who runs a baseball organization, but it's a recruiting group, and he helps a lot of young men with their baseball careers and aspirations and so forth. And I asked him at one point, can you introduce me to somebody who can talk about a lot of different things having to do with preparations for yourself physically and mentally, and I brought up peer pressure. And the first person he brought up was you, Roger. Roger Collins, a physical therapist. And when I asked you, you said peer pressure. I don't think that's the first thing people come to me about, but you know, now that I think about it, and you're here tonight.
Correct, and thanks for having me, Rich.
Talk about what you do in your day-to-day routine and where this does fit into your equation.
Well, fortunately, with the job that I do, I have a chance to meet a lot of different people. I've got a great little group of them in here tonight. And as a result of that, I get a chance to really interact with them on a regular basis, not just about injuries, but about what's happening with them in sports and school. I get a chance to watch them develop. I might get a young person in there who's 12 years old, and 6 years go by, suddenly they're 18. I get a chance to watch them through those years and see how they develop. And it's interesting to kind of watch the give and take they have, the curves they go through, and where they end up, sort of the pressures they feel, and not just peer pressure, but overall pressures in their life and things like that, and how that sort of influences them.
And as you've seen them develop, you probably step back and say, I never would have thought I'd see that in that person, or right?
In both directions.
Correct.
I'll look at, I've seen some that look like beautifully gifted athletes, magnificent bodies, their head seems to be screwed on straight, and a couple of years later I'll ask somebody who knew them whatever happened to so-and-so, and it's another tragic story. They got in with a group, just, the pressures of all the sports things sort of overtook them. They went another direction, and life has sort of encompassed them that way. So
you heard Keith Newirla early tonight, the very first segment, say people, places, purpose.
Yep.
Resonates no matter what, doesn't it?
That's correct.
Absolutely. So, Joe, that's the stuff that is going to go through the entire evening.
When I hear you give that example, why is it? Why does somebody go, Roger, from a position of, I don't want to say power, because that's the wrong way to define it or describe it, but from being at a very, very high level to a sudden change and then end up in a different scenario?
Well, I think, especially with sports in particular, we forget why they were invented in the first place. It was supposed to be a release from the pressures of day-to-day life and things like that. Well, thanks to adults getting involved in it, quite frankly, and, everyone's trying to push these kids to go more and more and more and become better and better and better. Some of the fun sort of goes out of that. And so they're looking for a whole different release point, another direction to go. And so, unfortunately, they might go to a group that's a little more accepting of them than the way they're viewing life, and so the sports takes a back seat and something else steps in.
So you take right turns and you take wrong turns.
You got that right.
Absolutely. Well, out in the audience right now, Jill Richards, our associate producer, is with 3 student athletes, Zach Blickley of CB South, Colleen McShay and Maddie Chatham, both from St. Hubert's. Jill, a lot to talk about based on what Roger just said. It's easy to take wrong turns. Let's get your take and the kids' take.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's peer pressure in every aspect of your life. And I think now, it's great that I'm speaking to you guys now because we're younger, we're the younger generation. And I think social media is probably one of the most prominent things in our day and in our lives. You know, we use social media platforms every day, right? So I guess I can ask the question, do you see social media adding any pressure to your life? Zach?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you can share something with the world in 1 second, just a split second, you push a button and everyone can see it.
So, Colleen, how do you take charge of that? I mean, all your friends are sitting around somewhere doing Snapchats and Instagrams and tweets and everything else. How do you, as an individual, weed through it all and say, you know, I got to stay above this? I mean, you're not saving any lives, but maybe you are by sending out the right message instead of the wrong message. How do you own that?
Well, for me, I just think, maybe I would have fun if I went out one night.
One of the high school sports show here on 610 ESPN Radio. We're live down at the Field House in Center City. What a great spot to be here on a Monday night. Don't forget, 1 week from tonight, next Monday night, live here on 610 ESPN.
We hear a lot of things where people make like morally wrong things to do, and he waited till he was 21, and he didn't drive or anything, and he still went home, and it still hurt him in the end. And I think you don't get a lot of stories from that perspective. We hear a lot about like negative choices made with drugs, but I think that there might have been some good decisions made in that night, but there's like obviously just one little wrong thing can hurt you in the end.
So you make your own luck, do you not? Keith, you're nodding your head. In this life, you make your own luck, I would believe.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to put it.
I'm looking at you. What do you think?
I agree.
That's because I put her on the spot, Ben. You notice that? Did it to you, did it to her. I got pretty much the same response in both cases. But Emily Gallo, you have to understand, all you have to do is look at Emily Gallo and you see energy. And you appreciate what's going on in this conversation.
I do. Yeah.
Really, there's real life issues being talked about. And as a high schooler, you don't always find yourself in those situations?
No, not always, but it's definitely important, and it's definitely important to take a step back and really think about like, wow, something could really hurt me. Wow, my life could really change. It's easy to be in a little high school bubble, and sometimes when you hear stories like this, it kind of takes you out of that bubble and makes you realize how precious your life is, and that's the kind of thing that Athletes Helping Athletes does as well. When you go to an Athletes Helping Athletes event, it takes you out of your little athlete, your team, your high school bubble, and it exposes you to these kids who aren't just like you. They're not as privileged as you, and they make you feel so much better. They make you feel so much happier, and it's really good. It's all really good.
Hey, Colleen, earlier tonight I brought up the word courage as being critical because you do have to have the courage to take that extra step or do something that's risky socially or joining an organization you know nothing about. How does that play in your life?
Well, in my life, I actually recently tried out for Penn State cheerleading, and I was extremely nervous going in because I knew no one there, and I thought like maybe I should just like go in freshman year and meet some people and then try the next year. But I decided to go, and that did take a lot of courage for me to do that, and I ended up making the team, and I'm so glad now that I did that.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Ben, learn anything tonight? Instead of being a teacher, did you absorb? What did you learn here tonight?
I learned that there are individuals that are taking, they're valuing a good decision a lot more these days in terms of what it's done for them.
I think it was said earlier, you always are competing for everything. You always want to be the best at whatever you're doing. So, when you maybe don't study enough for a test and you get a poor grade and then you see someone else getting a good grade, you think, they probably studied more than me. Maybe I should be doing what they're doing and, really commit myself to that.
I think that also our parents play a big role in that, and I think that what some like past generations don't understand that we have now is my parents can pull my grades up at any time and see like every single grade.
Now, Ben, we didn't have to deal with that when we were in high school, did we? You can get your grades. I know, because my son has come in to me and said, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" And he didn't say a word about his grades until he got a good one. "Hey, Dad, I just checked my grades." I mean, it is a place now where you can do almost anything instantaneously.